Great show tonight. Thanks so much.
Have a great show.
All right, I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle live tonight from Dallas. The Democratic Party isn't just the party of open borders. It's now the party of anti-Semitism. Yes, and the president is weighing in. We'll get to that ahead. Plus, it isn't just the Republicans saying they found no evidence of Russian collusion. Wait until we reveal why the resistance might be feeling a little burned tonight. And Beto O'Rourke spoke at an anti-wall protest last night. He ignored our request for an interview, Natch, but we crashed his party. Raymond Arroyo was there, and he brings us his report later. But first, the border wall becomes a border stall. That's the focus of tonight's angle. I hate to tell you I told you so, but I told you so. When the White House and the GOP failed to act on the Trump immigration agenda in the first 100 days of his presidency, his pledge to build a wall would be jeopardized. Trump's initial instinct, which is usually spot on, was to veto that omnibus bill last year. I'm telling you, he was right then. But Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell promised him that they would get this wall funded in full in the lame duck session if that was necessary. Well, big shocker, that never happened. So after Speaker Paul, I need to spend weekends at home, Ryan, handed the majority to the Democrats, well, the president faced an even higher wall of resistance. A lame-o border deal was announced right before the president took to the stage in El Paso last night, and by the morning, the details started trickling in.
I have to study it. I'm not happy about it. It's not doing the trick, but I'm adding things to it. And when you add whatever I have to add, it's all going to happen. We're building a wall. And now I'm saying we're finishing a wall.
Well, that won't happen, though, not unless the president finds the money elsewhere or declares a national emergency, which will immediately be challenged, of course, by the left in court. And tonight, after speaking with one of the Republican architects, Richard Shelby, senator from Alabama, of the latest deal, the president tweeted, "Was just presented the concept and parameters of the border security deal by hardworking Senator Richard Shelby. Looking over all aspects, knowing that this will be hooked up with lots of money from other sources, we'll be getting almost $23 billion for border security. Regardless of wall money, it is being built as we speak." We'll get into that in a little bit. But so what's in this deal? What's really in it? The official language hasn't fully been released. And I love this. Doing this at the last minute, try to rush it through. But here are some of the basics of the deal as reported. $1.375 billion for barriers that are not called, but look a heck of a lot like the steel, slanted structure, the barrier that Trump had already approved. Second, an average daily cap of 40,520 beds for detaining illegals. Now, that's almost 9,000 fewer than we're detaining now. But Trump would have the authority to boost that number, pulling the money from other sources. Now, there's more to it, too, but it's simple to see what's going on here. The Democrats' ultimate goal is to codify catch and release, where if an illegal makes it into the country, he or she will be welcome to stay, along with any child he or she brings with them across the border. Now, what does this do? This is not a difficult concept, right? It only encourages more illegal immigration. Now, remember, the president asked for $25 billion last year for the wall and a bunch of other reforms as well that made a lot of sense. But the Dems wouldn't budge on issues like chain migration or those diversity visas. They wouldn't go near it. Then in December, now moving into the lame duck session, he asked for 1/5 of that. Yeah, I'm still pretty good at math, sort of. It's $5 billion of the $25 billion. Now, he perhaps thought that this would become some type of annual wall expenditure. Well, fat chance. They don't want a wall. They never wanted a wall. But on the bright side, and I have to look at the glass half full here, the current deal does expose just how far left the Democrat Party has gone on the issue of illegal immigration. They've gone from this.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked.
And illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
We must control our borders. We must protect our borders.
To this.
We know that walls do not save lives. Walls end lives. There is no bargain in which we can sacrifice some of our humanity to gain a little more security.
Oh, really? So walls kill people. Well, last year there were 1,247 people slaughtered in a vicious fashion, many of them by the cartels and other criminals across the border in Juarez. That was a 62% jump from the year prior. It's a killing field there. So Beto can't possibly mean we should tear down the current wall in El Paso, can he? Well, think again. Remember this gem that then Congressman O'Rourke sent out in 2015? It read, "Tear down this wall." Oh, boy, that's a keeper. Well, I can tell you that the people we met in El Paso last night, they disagreed vehemently. And an underreported fact is that about half of the audience at the Trump rally were themselves Hispanic. And they most certainly do not want the wall between the cartel-run Juarez and El Paso torn down. No way. They love their peaceful community. It was a really fun place to be. We loved meeting the folks we met there last night. They don't want any part of Juarez's way of life with beheadings and bodies that have been dumped in the street.
Last year, Juarez had 1,200 murders. El Paso, right next door, a few feet away, had 23 murders. Walls work. Actually, there's nothing like them for what we're talking about. We want to stop drugs. We want to stop traffickers. We want to stop criminals from coming in. Walls save lives.
Now, of course, as much as we wish things were different, the fact of the matter is Trump is vowing to continue this fight right through the 2020 election about the wall and keeping our country safe. And another shutdown would have probably ended up hurting the president, distracting from this booming economy. And we're here in Texas. It is off the charts. And there's a lot of other great news as well that would be distracted from if this thing continued in a shutdown form, including the China negotiations going on right now in Beijing. And also, let's not forget, while Trump isn't getting everything he wants, and definitely not what most of us want, Democrats are also breaking Pelosi's pledge.
Is there any situation in which you would accept even $1 of wall funding for this president in order to reopen the government?
$1? $1? Yeah, $1.
Well, try $1.375 billion. She might not want to call it a wall, but that's what it is. And that's not all bad. And that's the angle. Here now live from Capitol Hill, Republican Congressman Chip Roy of Texas and Tom McClintock of California. Congressman Roy, you have, to say the least, reservations about this framework. What do you say to those who think, well, that's the best offer out there, and it's better than another shutdown where the president just get beaten up every day?
Well, good evening, Laura. Thanks for having us on. I wish I was in Texas instead of being here in the swamp, where I'm forced to try to prevent Republicans from making yet another boneheaded deal, quote unquote, where right now we should be focusing on the fact that the American people are with us, that they're with us because they know that they want their border secured. I was just down in the Rio Grande Valley last week and visiting with Border Patrol, where we see 400,000 people that are going to be streaming across the Rio Grande Valley this year, of whom 200,000 will not even be apprehended. And of the 200,000 who are, 90% will be caught and released, like you know, because we allow judicially created catch and release to govern our border security. The cartels have operational control of our border. It's time for us to do our job, and this deal isn't doing our job. $1.375 billion is the baseline. We need to get the money that is necessary so the Border Patrol aren't down on the border without the radio signals they need, without the ability to have the fencing to stop the flow. And where fences are in place, they work. We've seen a 90% reduction where fences have been put in place, and it's time that we do our job instead of cutting back.
Congressman, we got to move the conversation. We got limited time. Let's move the conversation forward. That has already been established, and you're right about that, 100%. Congressman McClintock, first of all, your governor has pulled back his National Guard troops from the border. He made a big stink about that when we're not talking about the bullet train fiasco that blew up today, that fiasco. But this broke from the Washington Post just moments ago, and I want to quote it for you, Congressman. The bill was still being written tonight, Tuesday night, and lawmakers from both parties were pushing to include a number of favored provisions. Those are called pork provisions. Well, some Democrats wanted to add language that would provide back pay to federal contractors who were caught in the middle of the recent shutdown, but it's unclear if lawmakers would be successful in getting the provision included. Now, I'm hearing tonight that that could destroy any possibility of this thing even going forward. But people have to understand, we don't even have the language yet, and we know stuff gets slipped in, Congressman McClintock, at the last minute. It happens every single time to the American taxpayer. Your thoughts?
Well, Laura, as long as the Democrats control the House, nothing good is going to come out of the House of Representatives. And as long as the Republicans have given Chuck Schumer and the Democrats a filibuster veto over any appropriations bills, we're not going to get a good bill through the Senate either. The good news is the president has statutory authority to move ahead with building the wall. He can actually draw about $13 billion to do so, far more than he's asking from Congress. He has the legal authority to do so. He has the responsibility to do so. And ultimately, that's the only way the wall is going to be built.
Well, I understand the White House counsel's office is looking at a provision of the U.S. Code, I think it's 287, that would allow the president to move money into wall building that has a relation to stopping the flow of drugs across the border.
Well,
Is that what you're hearing as well, Congressman?
No, not only that, but he can reprogram unobligated military construction funds for that purpose. That law dates back to 1976. It's been invoked 58 times, including for the Civil War in Sierra Leone. This is clearly a priority national defense issue, and the president has the legal authority to declare it that and to pull those funds from other military construction projects and put it into the most important project we have, the defense of our southern border. And to those who say, oh, well, that's going to come out of other military construction funds, my question very simply is, what's more important, securing the border of Iraq or securing the border of the United States? Again, 60,000 people a month that are now illegally crossing.
And now, but everyone has to understand who's watching the show tonight, everyone has to get, and Congressman Roy, I want you to chime in on this, that nothing in this proposal would deal with the family units crossing the border. The Democrats are so dishonest on this. And the Republicans, frankly, dropped the ball in the first 100 days. Republicans should have handled the president's agenda, and he should have insisted on it in the first 100 days. That was his instinct, and he listened to Paul Ryan and the crew, and that was a huge mistake in the end.
It's worse than that.
But these family units can still cross the border, Congressman, right? And they're going to be released because the court makes them be released. They're going to be released, and that's going to continue. Huge influx into this country. Today, the Washington Post wrote another piece about it.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, look, the asylum issue that we're dealing with, as well as the Flores decision, the point where I said the judicially created mandatory catch and release, that's the core problem. And we've got to address that issue and not allow the judges to decide how we're going to secure our border. And I think the president's right to be focused on emergency declarations. And the things that we're not talking about are the extent to which the cartels have literal operational control of our border. In Tamaulipas, the state just across the Rio Grande Valley, is a level 4 state. It's a danger zone where we're not allowed to travel, or not supposed to travel. That's an emergency level kind of operation that we're dealing with at our border. And the president's right to be focused on that. And Congress ought to do its job and step up in having the obligation to secure our border.
All right, gentlemen, thanks so much. And hold on, we have to go, but thank you so much. We'll have you back as this continues to develop. And after some early morning criticism, some GOP offices are pushing back against me, specifically as relates to ICE and the detention beds. They say, despite the claims from the Democrats and the media, that this package will end up providing more beds than were requested in the president's budget, since DHS and ICE can use all of the transfer reprogramming authority they're given. But does that sound like a lot of gobbledygook to you? It's like promises of things to come. What does that really mean? With answers, we're joined by Tom Homan, Fox News contributor and former acting director of ICE. Tom, who's more accurate here? The people who are all upset, or yours truly?
You. I mean, I watched Republicans, say what a great deal this is. Look, they're going to put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. This is a terrible deal, and they should, and for them to stand there and say, hey, look what we've done. It's a shame. They got played, and they lost. And like you said earlier, they're funding ICE for 7,000 less beds than they have filled right now, and they're already releasing people. This is going to cause ICE to release criminals. That's just the truth. They're going to have to release criminals because they're not funded properly.
Right, so they have no place to put them, and that's what Democrats want. You expect that from the Democrats, Tom, but you don't expect the Republicans to try to make nice with this. And I get it. They're going to try to move money around. I understand that. But when push comes to shove, when you have an influx of people crossing the border, 200 here, 300 here in Arizona, New Mexico last week, you had all these big pockets of people crossing at one time. Well, what do you do with them, Tom?
Well, here's the problem, right? The Republicans don't really understand it because the Republicans on that negotiating committee, they didn't even talk to an ICE agent. An ICE agent or an ICE officer or budget person, no one from ICE was briefed or allowed to brief this committee, so they don't understand. When they talk about moving money around, we do that every year. For the last 10 years I've been in D.C., we had to reprogram money every year but one. And because they never funded ICE at the appropriate level. And they say they can move money around. What does that mean? That means taking money from the Coast Guard, taking money from FEMA, taking money from the Secret Service. It's ridiculous because they have missions, too, that are very important. Fund ICE at the level they're supposed to be funded. ICE asked for 52,000 beds and justified it on paper because right now they're holding 49, and they're releasing people as it is because they don't have enough beds. You said it yourself, family units, they're being released right now from California, New Mexico, and Arizona because there's not enough beds. Yeah. So the message the Democrats are sending is if you enter this country illegally, as long as you don't commit another crime, in the words of the chairman of the House Appropriation Committee, you're a law-abiding immigrant. I shouldn't be touching you. No, you're in, and no one will ever deport you. I mean, basically, you will not be deported. But they're saying the Republicans are saying, because they're hearing from people like me, they're saying, oh no, we're going to get up to 58,000 beds. Where? And you're saying that's just bull. Yeah, where's the money coming from? Explain. You know what? Show me on paper where that money's coming from, because you got to take it from someplace. I mean, you're going to take it from the Coast Guard? You're going to take it from TSA or FEMA? Right. It's ridiculous. Tom, I want to play for you something that I want to play Shelby not Shelby. We're going to play McConnell first because, again, if McConnell greenlights something, President agrees, it's going to go through. Let's listen.
First of all, I hope he signs the bill. And second, I think he ought to feel free to use whatever tools he can legally use to enhance his effort to secure the border. So, no, I would not be troubled by that. Well, one, I hope the president don't sign the bill. And second of all, it's his job to fund the government and to pass legislation. The president shouldn't have to find a workaround because they failed at their job. Thank you. Well, when I heard that, Tom, I said, wait a second. That's a cute little trick. Like, well, I hope the president does what we couldn't do when we had the majority in the House and the Senate. And the president was told, Tom, repeatedly told, that he was going to get the money in the lame duck. And they frankly lied to him. They did not tell him the truth. He should have never signed that omnibus spending bill. That omnibus was a scandal last year. His instincts on this, he reads these situations well. His instinct was right. And I got to get a quick reaction. Menendez wants everybody to back off on the DUI issues. We won't play the soundbite. But he wants everyone to back off on DUI convictions for the illegal immigrants as grounds for deportation. And you say? I mean, are you kidding me? 10,000 people a year die from DUIs. 28 people a day die from DUIs. I'd rather put an illegal alien in jail for DUI than white-collar bank fraud. It isn't about if it's a felony or misdemeanor. It's about, is it a public safety threat, and is it a threat to American citizens? DUI, are you kidding me? Over 10,000 deaths a year from DUI. That's a public safety issue. Tom, as always, clarity. We really appreciate it, and candor. Up next, will freshman Democrats be held responsible for blatant anti-Semitism? President Trump called out Congresswoman Ilhan Omar to resign, and one of her supporters is here next to tell us why the president is wrong. A can't miss debate next.
Is so deep-seated in her heart that her lame apology, and that's what it was lame, and she didn't mean a word of it, was just not appropriate. I think she should resign from Congress.
President Trump sending a message to newly elected Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar after her rash of anti-Semitic comments, including the suggestion that members of Congress who support Israel only do so because of cash from moneyed Jewish groups. Now, she isn't the only freshman Democrat under fire. Today it was revealed that in 2006, Rashida Tlaib wrote for the official publication of the Nation of Islam, led by well-known anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan. Joining me now, Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union, and Katie Halper, host of the Katie Halper podcast. Matt, let's start with you. Now, Omar has offered something of an apology, and Tlaib said she does not endorse Farrakhan's more controversial views. So is it safe to say the Democrats officially really have a problem, or are they just bad at apologizing?
First of all, yes, bad at apologizing, but I think there's something more deep-seated here, which is a real shift in the Democratic coalition. You would have always thought that Jewish support, and they do get a big majority of Jewish votes in America, but Jewish support was always so central to the Democratic Party. And Democratic consultants I've talked to have talked about shifting. They're shifting away from solid support for Israel. You saw what happened with the Iran deal, and it was so surprising to see so few Democratic voices stand up against that deal. They really pretty much folded. And now there's this embrace of more this kind of Arab coalition. And, you know, we're seeing a big shift in politics. And I think this is a moment when there's kind of a crack up in the Democratic coalition on issues around questions of race and anti-Semitism.
Katie, you say that Omar's comments are both not anti-Semitic, and you didn't have a problem, I imagine, with the first comments.
No, I mean, I have a problem
the apology
with smearing
was
her
fine.
as an anti-Semite. She said something, this is how anti-Semitic it was, apparently. She said something that Thomas Friedman, major supporter of Israel, has said. Thomas Friedman said at the New York Times that an applause that Bibi Netanyahu received was paid for by the Israel lobby. An Israel lobby, any lobby is a lobby. A lobby lobbies, uses money to influence politics and politicians. That's what AIPAC does. AIPAC wants you to know that. AIPAC knows that. Everyone who donates to AIPAC knows that. This is literally stating a fact. There's nothing anti-Semitic in there. What is anti-Semitic, though, if you want to talk about anti-Semitic tropes and playing into those, is what Kevin McCarthy, who along with Donald Trump is going after Ilhan Omar, and what he said in a tweet that he deleted was that that Steyer and Bloomberg and Soros were buying the election. Now, that is an anti-Semitic trope that he definitely played into. He deleted the tweet, but he never apologized.
So
and
billionaires
Trump,
can't buy an election.
Well,
then I get billionaires who are liberal. That's cool. But if you're a conservative, you're spending too much money.
Wait,
all right, Katie.
Also, Trump.
Katie, Katie, take a breath. Take a breath. Let it out. It's okay. Take a breath, Katie. No one can understand if you talk over me, sweetie.
Crazy. I get annoyed by hypocrisy and Islamophobia.
Well, I get annoyed when people talk over it because our viewers can't actually hear what we're saying. So I want them to hear you, and then I want them to hear everybody. Okay, Matt didn't interrupt you, so try to just take a breath. All right, this is the Washington Jerusalem Post today. Don't roll your eyes. My daughter does that, and it gets really annoying. Ilhan Omar to keynote event alongside anti-Semite days after AIPAC rant. Omar will be speaking alongside a well-known Islamic Relief USA official, Yusuf Abdullah, who has openly advocated for violence against Jews and has shared anti-Semitic sentiments on social media. Are you also a defender of his, Katie?
I don't know about his bio. I do know that Chuck Schumer has said things that are very Islamophobic, for instance, and no one asked him to apologize. That's the problem, is that there's this double standard.
But no pattern. You see no pattern among some of these newer congresswomen
if you speak out against
who seem
Israel,
to equate money
you're
with
equated
Jews.
with anti-Semitism. Chuck Schumer, for instance, said that there's no peace in the Middle East because Palestinians don't follow the Torah,
Katie,
which is theocracy.
Her tweet in 2012, I'm just trying to understand, I want to get to Matt, but I'm trying to understand your level of support for her views, okay? Because when I hear Jews control the money or anything hinting at that, then that's a trigger. The left loves to hear about triggers.
Right,
well, that triggers a lot of people who remember the Holocaust. It triggers them, and I think justifiably so.
I have a question,
here's what she said in 2012. Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. Now, Matt, I would think most people would say that was anti-Semitic. If we can't agree as Americans that that's an anti-Semitic comment, then I don't know what the heck we're doing on cable news anymore, because to me, that's kind of obvious.
And this is what people have done. The reason why there is a Zionist movement and the reason why there's a state of Israel is because the Jewish people were almost exterminated from the face of the globe, and they did not have a sanctuary place they could go to have their own state. There are plenty of Muslim states. There are plenty of Arab states. There wasn't a state for Jews to be able to call their own. And by the way, it's there. It's there. And by the way, it's there, and it's their land. So I think it's awfully important. And people shade this into this question about the only reason why people are standing up for the state of Israel is because of, quote, the Benjamins. And I'm Christian, but I'm offended about that because they're a democracy, an important part of the world. They're a strategic ally to the United States. We don't have to agree with absolutely every decision their government makes, but it is wrong to attack them as a people.
Well, no one attacked them as a people, luckily.
I just saw that tweet.
AIPAC. I'm a Jew. I'm a person. No one attacked me because I don't support AIPAC. Millions of Jews don't support AIPAC, and that's why they're all